The Financial Action Task Force, the FATF, says it recognizes the strong efforts that South Africa has made in addressing deficiencies in anti-money laundering as well as counter-terrorism regulations. Well, this is according to the FATF President Elisa De Anda Madrazo, who was speaking to SABC News on the sidelines of the G20 Finance Track meeting that is underway in Durban. South Africa announced earlier that it has substantially completed all 22 action items that were contained in the action plan adopted when South Africa was grey-listed back in February of 2023. The country will then know in October this year if indeed it will get off FATF's grey list or not.
Greetings to our viewers. We are still at Balito in KwaZulu-Natal, where we have the G20 Finance Track meeting. This morning's engagement started with a compact on Africa held by the G20 and G7, where they engaged on issues of Africa's development in terms of being able to create investments and jobs to solve Africa's many socio-economic challenges. And later on, we'll be moving on to a session with G20 members talking about cross-border payments and also obviously dealing with risks associated with those. And now I'm bringing into the conversation FATF President, the Financial Action Task Force, that is the watchdog for anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. We've heard a lot about that with South Africa being grey-listed in the past 2 years, working through those challenges that it was facing, and now bringing to the conversation the president of FATF, Elisa De Anda Madrazo. Thank you so much for joining us. The G20 group plays a crucial role in terms of global finances. What would you say are some of the priorities that this group should be focusing on to try and curb illicit financial flows?
So thank you very much for having me, and congratulations on having 75 years live. I think the G20, we have to recall where it started, and it was created for 3 reasons. First, to promote financial stability. Second, to promote economic cooperation. And third, to develop growth. And those are really connected to the fight against illicit crimes. So financial regulation is key to secure the financial system. When you have a secure financial system, you have a financial system that is stable. So how is the FATF contributing in that specific part? We want to make sure that the payments are safe. And cross-border payments are incredibly important. By 2027, the estimate is that there will be $250 trillion moving through cross-border. So we need those payments to be secure. For them to be secure, they need to be transparent, and they need to be also traceable. And that is where we come in, because we, the FATF, is the standard setter body, as you mentioned, on both issues, anti-money laundering and combating terrorist financing. So we play a key role in setting those rules. And we have just updated those rules recently, as recent as a couple of months ago. And then we are promoting a guidance to make sure that we have clear rules on who has to collect the information, on who is sending the money, who is receiving the money. And that will be a win-win for everyone, for the governments, because the authorities will know where to collect the information when they need it, financial intelligence units, prosecutors, police, for the private sector, because the financial system has changed so much, the payment systems have changed so much, that sometimes it was not clear who was responsible. And traditional financial institutions were doing the work that new players were not doing. So by having clear rules of the game and who has to collect and keep the information, we're streamlining the process. So that's very good for the private sector. But more importantly, for everyone, the users, the consumers of the financial services, we want you to know that the payments you're sending are secure and that you trust the system. And to make sure that that's the case, we have to put in these rules. But very important, it's not only about the trust in the system, so that you have confidence that the money is moving along correctly, but also making sure that we can bring the people into the system. This is related to financial inclusion, very relevant in Africa, in particular in sub-Saharan Africa. So we're making sure that these rules are not only giving a clear rule of the game, but also that they are proportionately implemented, so that people that need the services the most, in particular for remittances, for example, to keep their savings safe, can access the system. So this is also about financial inclusion.
Yes. What would you say currently are the most pressing trends that G20 should address in terms of threats of illegal financial flows?
So I think the G20 has to continue to focus on this part of cross-border payments to make sure that the financial system is safe, but also there is recognition of the relevance of financial integrity for development. If you have financial integrity, you have stable institutions, strong institutions, and that also helps with investment, with public procurement, and that really helps with economic growth, sustainable economic growth. So that is a very important connection. You mentioned, just as you started this interview, the importance of bringing economic growth. And the rules of AML-CFT, of combating money laundering and terrorist financing, are also key to this. And we see today we'll have a panel, I think it's session 5, where we'll be speaking precisely on the connection that we have between the financial integrity and economic growth. So that's another aspect that is related to the core mandate of the G20.
Coming to South Africa, what would you say is your observation in terms of South Africa's implementation of the recommendations on the action plan since its listing?
So thank you for that question. We move on now to the specific case of South Africa and the follow-up that it has been having with the FATF. As early as June of this year, so a month ago, the FATF recognized the strong effort of South Africa, and we're in contact with high-level authorities, and I think the decision of the plenary to go forward with an on-site, this is a visit of experts that we'll be taking at the end of this month, recognizes that strong work in South Africa. The visit that the experts will have, and we cannot preempt or say what the result of that will be at the end of this month, and they will be here precisely to make sure that those changes are sustainable. So it's not only about making the changes, but making sure that they're sustainable and that there is the political will and the political commitment to sustain those changes. If that visit, that on-site, goes well, the plenary will discuss it in October. We have our plenary week from October the 20th to the 25th, and we announce the results on the last day. So by October the 25th, we will be going public into the final decision of South Africa. For the moment, pending to the decision in October, I can say that there's strong recognition to the work of South Africa. In particular, we're doing investigations and prosecutions of complex money laundering cases. And this is really related to third-party money launderers, those that are just dedicated to launder the money and that are hired for that business, professional launder monies. And we really see that that is tangible to the risk in South Africa, and we see South Africa stepping up. So good cheers for South Africa and the work they have done so far.
Thank you very much for joining us for this interview. Well, that is the president of FATF. It's Elisa De Anda Madrazo, talking to us there about the challenges that South Africa has faced in the past 2 years, where they've had to make right of the shortcomings in terms of their regulations, in terms of anti-money laundering and countering terrorism financing.